Welcome to another episode of Inside CG. Today we are going over a topic requested by our viewers and listeners, and that is mindset. And why is mindset important? Well, we're going to go over a couple of little things that have been a game changer for myself and Whitney over the years, especially when it comes to having an outcome, having a destination that we want to get to, but obviously having the tools and the skills that help get us there on days where perhaps maybe we're not feeling so motivated, or maybe we're forgetting why we're doing what we're doing. And these are a couple of the things that we've really worked hard to achieve over the years. So Whitney, thanks for joining us today on this Inside CG podcast.
Thank you for having me.
The most awkward intro ever. So let's dive in. Tell us a little bit more about where do we start?
Well, tell me, for your journey, like I know people think of us as like a unit, but I think that we're wired very differently. I'm a lot more of a risk taker naturally, where you're very analytical. So how has mindset helped you in your journey of being a dad, a fighter, to retire fighting, to start a business, to having 3 gyms?
Okay. So analytical, maybe I would say maybe risk analysis as part of being a male and being someone that has to defend and provide for his family. I think when we go back as far as like my competitive days fighting in the ring, I think one thing I really suffered was my mentality and mindset around fighting and the outcome. You know, the expectation was set very high, being the son of the owner of the gym and having to succeed and to win, essentially like put a massive weight on my shoulders. And I think a lot of the time when I would look at the people older and around me was like, I would always try to emulate them. And obviously there was a lot of high achievers and succeeders that trained under my dad, and they fought and they won some big titles, whether it's like state, national, world championships. And I kind of always tried to gravitate towards what did they do? What were the things that they kind of talked to themselves about, like, you know, what struggles did they face and how did they kind of overcome them? And I never kind of really knew what worked and what didn't work. I kind of just winged it.
Yeah.
And I think what that did was, it was good. But the thing is, when you wing something and you don't actually know what to focus on in particular, and you've got lots of things that you're thinking are right, you never actually grasp a hold of and double down on the things that actually matter. So I would say that mindset has got me so far in fighting, and, you know, like...
Would you say like work ethic got you so far and then mindset came in later?
Yes, when it came to work ethic, like, you know, I still remember pulling on the joggers at like 5 a.m. to go run 10Ks before school. You know, like for me it was like work ethic was you either do it or you're going to get your ass kicked. And I knew that by watching other people make the errors before me. So I was like, I didn't want to go through the same mistakes. And then I knew the people that did those actions got the result. Yeah. But yeah, I guess the work ethic and mindset was kind of having good examples and inspirations to follow in the footsteps of.
Yeah, cool.
But I guess to further answer your question, I would say the last 5 years having a mentor that is very big on the mindset and has helped develop my own mindset, or, you know, instead of going a mile wide and an inch deep, really focus on the things that are most powerful to me has been a game changer. And especially when it comes to high achievers and people that want to become the best in what they do, like I definitely had to level up in my game as a coach in order to unlock the best mindset for them.
Yeah, how many belts did you get in a few years? So when you became a coach, you got something like, I'm going to say like 5 state titles and a few Aussie straps and then a world title in a very short period of time as a coach. And I think that's a testament to the work that you did with your mentor, working on everyone as an individual. So you would always address fighter 1 the way they needed to be addressed, fighter 2 a different way. You didn't have this like, all right, we're all going to just do the same thing, because I think every high performer needs something a little bit different. And I know like I was one of those fighters, but I watched you treat every fighter differently, and to see the results come in a very short period, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so for the record, we won 14 championships across state, national and world championship level. And like, I would say...
Probably 6 years?
Yeah, probably 6 or 7 years. I like to attribute part of that success was having an influence, but obviously having the people that were willing to step up to the plate, trust the process and the rigors I'd put them through, so that they were pressure tested for when it really mattered.
Yeah.
Was probably the biggest factors. So it's kind of like leading a horse to water, but then also hoping they drink as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
So let me ask you on the flip side of that.
Yep.
Being my wife, business partner, and all the crazy things we do in life, and you being a fighter, and just also life after a fighter becoming a mum, how has mindset had an impact on you?
I think, if I'm going to answer this 100% honestly, I always played things too small in my head. So, for example, yes. Someone would say, what's your goal? And I'd be like, I want a gym, and I want, like maybe 2 classes going at one time. Or, and then, the mentor would be like, why not 10 gyms? And that's just something like I couldn't envision, because it was so far away and it seemed like so much work, and it was so uncomfortable to me. Where it was the same with my fighting as well. It's like, maybe I'll just have one fight. And then you're like, well, you could beat this person, this person, this person, and then you're at this level. And then if we get these 3 girls, we're there. So I really lacked like the ability to think a lot bigger. And I think in life, if you think so small, that's your limit. Where if you go, okay, this is my huge, what do you call it?
Big, hairy, aggressive goal. Big, scary bus that lives under the bed.
Yeah, if you make your goal so big that it scares you, you're probably going to get a little bit further than if you keep it small.
Yeah.
So having people say like, Whitney, that goal's shit, you can do so much better. And there's been times when I've really arm wrestled with that person and been like, no, this is it for now. It's too overwhelming. But there's like, I never thought that would have 3 gyms. Like that was just never anything that I thought about. And it was the same with my fighting. Like I thought, I'd love to have a state title. And then obviously I got 2. And then I've had some fights with like some of the best in Australia at that time. And it's taken me, to different states and things like that. But if I didn't have someone go, you can do more, set bigger goals, make them bigger again, I think that I would have just had one fight. So yeah, thinking big.
Awesome. And would you say that you have developed the mindset you have today, or would you say that having like a coach and a mentor who has kind of drilled it into you, that has helped you develop what you have today?
Oh, you have to have a coach or a mentor, and it can be formal, non-formal, but I think someone to have like an outside perspective, and they're always different people for different things. But I think, you have to do that, because you just play small. It's like our brain's job to keep us safe.
Yeah. Risk analysis. And that was what I was going to say. Just at the end of that was like, sometimes we are so close to what we are doing. So like Whitney, before her first fight, she was like, Muay Thai, I love this. I want to do it. I want to fight and see how it goes. But then the immediate, you have someone that is kind of knows the game from experience and years of doing it. They can see potential in you, and then they can kind of draw a pathway. And then, like me as a coach, it's something like I've seen in the past where people and mentors don't give people a zoomed out version of what's actually achievable, ascertainable. Like there was times where I told people like, you have potential to become a state champion. And those people went ahead and did it, and some people never did. And then some people that I told could be Australian champion and then world champion, because I truly believe that they had the goods and the work ethic and the talent to do it.
Yeah. When we did the Q&A, I asked people what was like their mindset struggles. And something that I didn't actually think that would come through, a lot of people lacked self-belief. So that was 80% of the questions were around self-belief and confidence. The second one that we want to talk about is like reverse engineering goals and planning, because that's just something that's really, like we're really big on that. And from where we were to where we are, that has been like, I'd say like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then self-talk. So how you talk about yourself, the language you use in order to get to your goals. So I think self-belief is something that you probably, I'd say more like imposter syndrome, self-belief, you probably lacked a bit.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of tackle this
Wait, before you go,
Yeah.
we're talking about self-belief, right?
Yes.
Awesome, cool. Yep, go
So
ahead.
topic number one from mindset.
Topic number one.
Yeah. Self-belief often comes from like a kind of childhood trauma, someone like a mentor or a key player in your life telling you shouldn't or couldn't do that, or that you're going to fail. Maybe you did fail. Maybe you didn't commit to it fully, but something's happened. And for me, where I think about this is like, and you talked about before, is who is your direct circle? When I was partying with my girlfriends, you know, spending all my wage on drinking alcohol and going out to party, that was my like comfort circle, and that's what we all did. So when I started stepping away from that, I started suddenly surrounding myself with people that were winning in life, that were saving, that were going to university, that were, you know, getting job promotions. And I think that's a different level of conversation. So for example, like, you're not bitching about people and who's having sex with who on the weekend. You're talking about, you know, high level conversations, and then you're inspired to go, hey, like, if Tanya can do it, I can do it. So it's like, who are your immediate 5 friends? I know that saying is talked about a lot, but I think your network has a big thing or a big impact on the goals that you achieve in your life. So often when people come to the gym or they have a goal that they want to achieve, they may have to remove some of their friends because they're not actually building them up to succeed. They're pulling them back down to their comfort level. And I see that all the time. It's like, some people just don't want to see you succeed because it makes them feel uncomfortable that they're not doing the same things.
Yeah.
And how often do we do it? And like, we have a new starter seminar, like when all the new clients come on board, is like, this has to be about you and your goal and not what everyone says about you. Like, I know you've told me once, like, don't fight anymore. But if it's really important to you, like, you have to do it. You're big on affirmations, so I'll let you take over. Incantations, yeah. So how did they help you?
Oh, you mean the incantations for self-belief?
Yes.
Yeah, so just before I go into them, I think, yeah, I completely, like, agree with the self-belief thing. Like, it's one of those things that, you know, I really struggle with it as a person, and especially when it came to the imposter syndrome. Sometimes you feel like you're not deserving, you're not worthy, or sometimes you don't deserve a chance because someone's pushed you down or, you know, suppressed you in some way, or maybe you were denied an opportunity, or maybe you lost at something.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a case of never feeling like I deserved success. I really struggled with that because I thought that, you know, I've grown up with not a lot. My family, being the son of first-generation immigrants, they struggled through hell to give us a better future. And fighting was an expression of my frustration as a teenager. But the self-belief kind of always lingered with me, and the imposter syndrome was a massive factor. I think one of the game changers for me was obviously facing my demons constantly with a mentor, and, you know, I would have to open up. Number one, being coachable is so important.
Yeah.
That was one part of it before getting to the incantations, and admitting some of the things that I'm afraid of, and opening up about why I believe that I wasn't worthy or wasn't deserving, and why I felt the imposter. And only then do you identify, like, hey, is that actually true? Or is that just what we believe? Because sometimes whether it's real or true or not, whether we believe it is usually the truth.
Yeah.
But one really simple exercise at the beginning was, like, you know, talking about or writing down and identifying the work you've done to get to the point you are today. And that's a step before incantation once again. And I do this with the fighters sometimes, where they say, oh, I don't feel ready. I don't feel like I'm fit enough, or I don't feel like I've done the work required to get in the ring. So, okay, cool. Go down and grab a piece of paper and write down the last 4 to 6 weeks worth of work that you've put in leading up to the outcome that you're hoping to achieve very shortly, as in getting in the ring. You know, they come back with the journal and they've written all the work they've done, and then they realise they've actually done a shitload, and they're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's what lies below the surface. Anyway, the incantation part is what comes next, and that's definitely something that's been a game changer for me. So it's so unique, and they call it affirmations, but sometimes that's negatively associated with, you know, recovering drug addicts and alcoholics. But incantations is something that's like a spell you read to yourself, and it's usually 5 to 6 things that, you know, you write down on a piece of paper coming from your heart, and, you know, you give yourself a pep talk, because who doesn't love a pep talk? Whether it's a coach talking to you before a game or something important, I basically had to do that and train myself to read that every single day when I was brushing my teeth in the mirror. So things like, I'm strong, I'm bold, I'm powerful, I'll leave an impact, and I can't lose if I'm not willing to give up. Big 5 things for me that I've had to read, every day. And that's, everyone's different. I say to people, like, you have to develop your own. But what that does is you're brushing your teeth in the morning, get ready for a big day. Sometimes it's going to be a testing day, sometimes it's going to be a stressful day, sometimes it's going to be a challenge that you don't want to face.
Yeah.
And reminding yourself that I am one of these 6 qualities, or 5 or 6 qualities I've written down.
Yeah. I think that's really helped me, but more with my negative self-talk that we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and this is a bold statement, the only way to really tackle your self-belief is by doing, taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can think about it, you can talk to yourself, you can surround yourself by amazing people. But I think where people get stuck is they don't take action. They procrastinate thinking,
Yes.
I'm going to be ready next week.
Yes.
So, for example, when I had no fights, I had to have one before I could say that I could do that. So that created me to do that action.
Yeah.
So I created momentum. And then I said, okay, well, I won that. I believe in myself a bit more. So what's the next bigger goal I can set myself? Is it to have a bigger fight against a harder opponent, a pro fight? And then I stepped that a little bit more. So I did the same actions, got another result.
Yeah.
And then my self-belief goes up. But for some people, they need to start much smaller. So I'm going to go to the gym 1 time this week. Or I'm going to count my macros for this meal, and then the next day I'm going to count it for 2 meals. But the only way you can really prove to yourself that you can do something is by doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then going, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to piss fart around. So, giving it 110% and being really honest with yourself is saying, I gave this 100%. That is my best effort, and I may have fallen a bit short, but next time I'm going to do it. Because I think so many people approach challenges if I don't really give it my all, that's why I failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I won't get started until the moment's perfect. But actually getting started is the perfect moment.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that, because sometimes, I hear people talking about success, and, you should do, they talk about daily rituals and routines when you get out of bed in order to be successful. Write down your gratitude journal, do some breathing exercises and do some yoga, and we'll do some ice baths, and then we'll have a coffee.
Then it's 12 o'clock.
Your time's gone. And it's I'm sorry, but it's the only thing you need to do is have your coffee and get the fuck on with it.
Yeah.
And that was something I used to be the person that thought I needed all these rituals to make sure it was right. And then I had a coach that just whacked my work off the table. He's you need to do A, B, and C and stop worrying about all the other shit and get this shit done, because this is what matters. Have your coffee,
doing the work.
get it done. And read your incantation on the way, because otherwise you're not setting yourself up for success. And that's that. Simple. And then I was oh. And then I started doing it, and I fell over that many fucking times. But then I was okay, well, next time I'm not going to fall over, but I'm going to make sure I give it my best effort. I'm not going to bullshit myself as I did well, give myself a pat on the back, when I could have given so much better.
Yeah, how many times have we had those conversations with each other? And you've said, or I've said to you, Pamorn, I think you could have done better.
Oh, fuck, it kills me every time. Could have done better. I look at myself in the mirror and I actually start thinking to myself, how could I have been better? But I think those are good conversations, because, number one, I'm surrounded with someone that's honest with me. But then number two, thinking outside the square of, okay, assess what was done, what was the outcome, how could it be done better next time?
Yeah.
Kind of like when we win a fight and we go, oh yeah, we're celebrating, we're looking at our medals, got photos, everyone's cheering and celebrating. But it's okay, cool, it actually blindsides you to the fact that how you could do things better next time.
Yeah. All right, so next topic is planning / reverse engineering.
You're probably a lot
guys.
better at planning when it comes to reverse engineering.
No, I actually think that you do this really well. So
oh, really? That's good to know.
Where I think people go wrong, and it's not, often I think people plan, right? Often they probably don't. Yeah. It's alarming what I see through having a gym. Okay, so say if your goal is to lose 20 kilos. When is your end date? What days are you training? When are you resting? Are you doing meal prep? There's so many mini steps that go into achieving just that goal. But when you're so crystal clear on that goal, I think for me, the biggest lesson in this is what you have to say no to, right? So everyone wants their goal, to lose 20 kilos by summer. but they've got 3 months to do it. And if they don't really know what to say no to, they're going to go out and eat with their friends. They're going to go to that party because they haven't set themselves any rules.
Yeah.
And they're not really honest about how dedicated they need to be in order to achieve that goal.
Okay, can I pause you for a sec?
Yeah, go.
So when it came to you, like your partying days with the girls, living week to week, you know, partying, drinking, going out, like, and you started Muay Thai. Give us some context on some of the things, like, because people starting out with the sport want to live the party life, but also want to do Muay Thai or boxing because it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, what were some of the things you had to say no to?
Pretty much it all.
Well,
So
give
like
us
you
some
literally
examples.
like can't live the best of both worlds. So,
Why?
well, drinking and Muay Thai fighting are very different
But
things.
they're both cool.
Yeah, so the way I look at that now is that's like instant happiness that lasts a very short period of time.
Right, drinking or Muay Thai?
Drinking.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
It's like this small part of cheap fun, cheap endorphins that lasts a very small period of time. The next day, wake up feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Now with Muay Thai fighting, it's not an instant payoff, or building a business or helping clients. It's a lot longer journey.
Yeah.
So I've got to say no to all these things in between, all these social events, or not eating at them, not drinking at them. And then the end result gives me something that fulfills me at such a greater level that I will never really lose in my life. Like, no one can take those feelings away from me because I've achieved something that I've had to sacrifice so much more.
Yeah, it's discipline.
Yeah, and I think people come into the gym, they go, I want to start a martial arts because I want discipline. And what is discipline? It's saying no to something.
Yeah, it's, what's the word that I remember reading?
It doesn't come for free, though. You don't start Muay Thai and get discipline.
Oh,
You
it
get
comes at a
discipline by
price.
saying no. Yeah.
I think the quote that I read was, it's giving you, it's kind of future self-care
Yeah.
by making a decision to say no to something now.
Yeah.
And I was always like, oh, that's bang on, that's spot on.
Yeah. The next thing is, with your planning is, whatever you think the plan is, it's going to take a lot longer. So if you think about, I'm going to say, becoming a world champ for Muay Thai, most of these guys have dedicated over decades, like over a decade to achieve that. And a new person comes to the gym and says, I want to be a world champ in 2 years. And it's not realistic. So how would you tackle like the mindset about the length of time?
Well, number one, it comes down to their why.
Yeah.
When it comes to like planning and I guess like time frames and all that, it comes down to why, because I always ask someone why. Why do you want to become a world champion, or why do you want to do this, and why is it important to you? Even before we sit down and make a plan, because if their why is like fuel on a fire, and if their why is not strong enough, their chances of them falling off is a lot higher because it just fizzles out and just becomes it's no longer a necessity for them. But I guess if someone's why is strong enough to achieve an outcome like become a world champion, okay, great, makes sense. Let's do it. Let's sit down and make a plan. Let's see if your time frames of 2 years is going to be realistic or not. Because a lot of the time, like you said, it takes 5 to 10 years to be able to achieve these types of things for the average person, right? And then their behaviours in training as a coach, are they showing up consistently? Are they doing the extras that you're asking? Are they doing and focusing on the things you're asking them to? And are they asking the right questions in order to develop in the right direction at the speed that they're hoping to? So yeah, I guess, are we giving people a bit of a guide on how to plan for these types of things, or how to goal set for themselves?
I just think in general, people underestimate the amount of time it's required to achieve any goal, whether that's to buy a house, to own a business, to, you know, like whatever your goal is, it generally takes a lot longer and a lot more work.
Yeah.
Like the 10X is a big thing. People just underestimate the amount of work that's required.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And I think where people go wrong as well is they don't factor in the mistakes. So in a perfect world, it's going to take these 10 steps to get there. To get this goal, we're going to train these times, we're going to eat these foods, we're going to weigh in at these times. But they don't factor in, you know, the speed bumps because they don't know when they're going to come.
You mean like, hey bro, come out and have a couple of drinks with us at the pub right now?
Or an injury or a weekend away. So all these little things that you might not foresee get in the way and stretch out that process again.
Yeah. And then it's the sum of those 5 people that you're surrounding yourself with pulling you away from your goal and your intended outcome.
Yeah. And then if you'll go, okay, like, I know that there's going to be some fuck ups along the way. Like, fail forward, we're going to learn from them, we're going to get better.
Yeah.
I got an injury. Did I do my recovery? Did I get enough sleep? Did I find a physio? So now I implement those things and there's going to be less injuries. But that's taken me another 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think the more you do it, the more, you know, you expect things and you go, okay, this is normal. I know if I'm going to overtrain, I'm probably going to burn out. But people just don't factor them into the plan. And when they arise, they just completely fall off the bandwagon and, you know, think they need something new, where they just needed to kind of pivot, move on, new direction, and they're there.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is the inflection points is what we call it when it comes to the planning.
Yeah.
The things that you're most likely to fall off the horse with. So it might be poor choices, bad decisions, your self-talk, you know, setbacks that may happen along the way, and being realistic with yourself.
Yeah.
Especially at that planning phase, which is basically going to pull you off your course to your outcome.
Yeah.
Right? And then you've got your why, you've got your action steps, and then you've got your inflection points and the cost of what it's going to cost you to do what you want to do. Such as go out less, stop ordering, you know, Uber Eats, or, you know, stop wasting time looking at pointless shit and stop scrolling, and, you know, making hard choices and saying no to people about shit maybe it's not really going to help you. And that's something I'm really, really passionate about when it comes to people sitting down and go, all right, Coach P, I really want you to tell me how I can achieve this because I've got this amount of time and this is why I want to do it. And I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. You can do it, but the thing is, you're gonna have to be realistic with yourself and go, given your current situation and what you're currently doing as a human being, I think you're gonna have to get rid of some things in order to make the outcome come true.
Yeah.
And we need some room for error here because life happens whether we like it or not. And yeah, I don't feel like you're being realistic.
Yeah. It's a hard pill to swallow or understand when you haven't done it before, and that's why you get a coach, because they've seen it all before, and that's when you have to trust them.
Yeah.
I know this is the boring stuff that no one really wants to hear, but like, let's talk about some of the tips that we've just implemented into our life that help you stay on track. For example, you never used to diarise anything, and now your schedule's like pretty much locked down week to week. So you know when you're doing things, what time you have to leave, travel time, so you can fit it all in.
Yeah, and I think like for a lot of people that rigidity sounds like hell because I'm just so rigid. I think that one thing when you sit down and you make a plan, it actually gives you a lot more time to do the things that you want to do properly. Like for those that don't know, I love hunting and the outdoors and fishing, and spare time. I'm an artistic and a creative person, so planning and diarising my life was one of the scariest things ever. And like, you're very organised before doing all these sorts of things. I wasn't. It was just chaotic. And I think one of those things where you sit down and you go, okay, what do I want to get out of this week in order to achieve my long-term goal?
Yeah.
And making sure they align to make sure I'm moving the needle forward. And sometimes it's like blocking time out where you have just creative time where you're not worrying about anything like work, and, you know, not do shit that you like. You know, like I have hobbies, I do my own time. When I do get out bush and do the things that I love, or on the water, it's like, okay, this is the time I'm going to have, I'm going to make sure I do it well.
Yeah.
And like, that's really important for me because then it fills up my cup and it allows me to pursue my greater goal with a lot more intent and fire.
Yeah, I think, okay, so like woman hat on, our brains are very different to men.
100%.
I think men have this unfair ability to like box their days. So when you're at work, you're at work. When you're here, you're there. Very simple brains, where a female is like all these loose, crazy wires just going crazy. So something that I really used to struggle with was when I was at training, I would still think about work. When I was at work, I'd think about training. When I was in bed, I was YouTubing fights. Like my whole world was just completely unorganized. So what I've had to do is like put my life into little compartments, and when I'm in that compartment, that's all I think about.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not perfect at it, but now when I'm at training, and more so now that I'm a mum because I have limited time, I'm 100% at training. So sometimes I need to go for a walk around the block or get changed and have these little steps that will allow me to just be fully present in that time. Because I think being effective is key for achieving your goals. If I'm not in that place, I'm not actually moving my needle forward. I'm just kind of being there with no intent.
Yeah.
if I'm at work with 100% intent, I'm going to get something achieved. But if I've got all these tabs open, I'm doing everything at a really, really shitty pace.
Yeah.
So that's helped me as well. Like being organised is going, I'm here, I'm there, or I'm there.
Yeah, and I do like that, what is it, age-old saying that men are really bad at multitasking or women are real good at it.
I think we're all bad at multitasking.
Yeah, well, that's very true, but it's like maybe I'd like to think of those primitive days where men are focusing on just hunting the game. They're bringing the game back to the village, and it's like the ladies do have a lot of responsibility. You know, keeping the fire going, keeping the house up, and looking after the people. Like maybe that's where it comes down to. But I think what you're saying, they're focusing on one thing to make sure you do it well, is so important.
Yes. Last point there.
Go on.
Always working on something that you're aware of. So, for example, bring it back to Muay Thai, is working on XYZ defense, rather than just coming in with no focus and you get good at nothing. So always coming in with an exact intent. What is the purpose of this session?
Yeah.
What are we going to achieve today? And we've kind of been doing that for all areas. So like, what are the 2 things we need to do at work today? Doing them really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why is that important, you mean?
Yeah, just because I think if you don't have that focus, you don't actually achieve anything.
Yeah, and I think when, like, from a coaching perspective and things I see quite commonly is a lot of people, they want to achieve, you know, like they want to get better at Muay Thai, or they want to have a fight one day, and those that are in fight camp, they do, you know, strength conditioning, and they do mindfulness, and they do ice baths, and they do meditation, and they do a boxing class, and they do a bit of everything, and they're not actually just doing Muay Thai and getting good at it. And sometimes I say, stop doing all of it, just worry about just doing the most important of it.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
Yeah. Okay. Are you done there with the planning,
so.
reverse engineering?
Pretty cool. Good chat.
Good chat. So this one is like very close to my heart, the last one. And people don't even realise that they're doing it. It's like the way you talk to yourself. So to get the party started, if you have a goal, so for example, weight loss, create a business, buy your house, whatever. Be a state champion, world champion, be the president.
Get a promotion at work, get your dream job.
Yeah. I want to lose 10 kilos. Oh, yeah. Versus I have to lose 10 kilos.
Need to.
Yeah, so I reckon need is in the middle. Want, need, have to. And this is something, I call it like burn the boat. If you give yourself no choice but to achieve it, you're going to achieve it.
Yeah.
But if you use words like want, need, there's no urgency behind it. And I think your actions follow those words. So when you like commit to a goal, you really have to do it. And you see people like they don't want to give themselves that expectation or raise that standard. And then as a result, they don't really achieve anything. And the other thing is this. Okay, come to training. Oh, I'm so tired. Oh, my knee's a bit sore. My shoulder's sore too. And then that dictates your session. Where if you come to me and you're like, you know what? Today was shit, but I'm here. I'm pumped. Let's do this. Let's dig deep. Find that little 1%er I didn't know I had. Which session is probably going to be better?
Oh, the one where you actually said that, I feel great, let's do it. Having a positive spin and looking at the, you know, maybe the couple of pluses, even if they are outweighed by the minuses.
Yeah, so why do you think some people say the negative stuff versus like the pump up hype man?
I think sometimes people just choose to focus on, you know, where they're at, as opposed to thinking like where they need to be to get themselves into a certain state of mind, to give themselves the best chance at achieving their goal. So instead of just going, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm ready to work towards, you know, doing what I said I was going to do. I've got 10 weeks to do it. I'm here because I've set the time in my calendar to make sure I can achieve it. I'm here, I'm pumped, and I've read my incantations. It's like, oh, I'm tired, and, you know, like, I'm trying to find other people to be like me. And what that does as a coach, and I've seen it in teams over the years, especially when coaching fighters who are going to war with another human being who's trying to take their head off, it brings the team down.
Yeah.
And I think it's no different to the people you surround yourself, even if it's not in a gym and you're not fighting. You know, you're sitting with old mate who's going to have a couple bongs after work because, you know, life sucks and it's hard. It's like, well, chances are that's what's going to happen. You know, with people that are like, hey, let's just give it a go. And if we fuck up, we fuck up. It's like, okay, well, you become more tendency like that. And that's what martial arts has given me. And that's why I use those specific examples, because I had people that were doing both, and I chose to go, it's not really for me, the other. Let's try a bit more of the other. And I think when you have that mentality, you can never lose.
The hard thing is a lot of people don't know that they're in that rut.
Mm.
And it's a hard conversation to have. Like, I've had clients that I've had to go, look, I don't mean to be that person, but like, you're quite negative.
Yeah.
And you've done the first step by joining the gym. So the next step is like turning up with some positivity.
Yeah. Self-talk.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And like, I've had moments with myself where I've had to go, you're talking about yourself terribly.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, what would you say to your son? Like, if he says, oh, you're not good at this, or I did bad, or that was shit, like, I'd be angry at him. And that's the thing, you've got to treat yourself like you would if it was anyone else.
Yeah, as if you're speaking to someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think calling people on...
Not everyone loves it, and sometimes they cancel and run away because people aren't open to feedback. Yeah.
You're not bringing them down because to make yourself feel better, but it's because it's like seeing something that they could potentially do better for themselves in order to better their lives overall. And being a bit more of a go-getter, being a bit more positive, having a bit more of hope and outlook in their life, which is so important. And giving opportunity a go as well, which is a big thing. Instead of talking themselves out of it like I used to as well with the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I've got this example I'll share when you're ready as well.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so one game-changing example that I remember hearing, I think it was a Tony Robbins thing, and he's standing on the stage and there's an arena full of thousands and thousands of people. I share this with people all the time because, it's not for me. Anyway, there's an arena full of thousands. He's standing on stage with a microphone. He says, I needed one volunteer. Everyone in the crowd starts turning and looking at each other, and they're like everyone gets really nervous. Who's going to stand up on stage? And then one hand appears from that thousands of people. They call him out and he walks up on stage. The guy goes up to Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins gives him a $100 bill and he says, go sit down. And the guy was confused and didn't know why he got the $100. But then when Tony explained it, he said, all of you are people in life. When opportunity presents itself, a lot of people are afraid. They get nervous because they are not sure what they're getting themselves into, or they're afraid to be embarrassed or put on stage in front of a lot of people. The guy that just stood up and got that $100 from me was an example of people that go out and give it a shot. I gave him $100 because I wanted to prove to you all that one person that stands up out of the crowd and takes the opportunity is the one that gets rewarded. And for me, when it comes to a scary situation, I think fighting has helped me fortify the person I am with that, because it kind of goes hand in hand. You've got to be in it to win it. And you have to go out and give your best shot and be that person that stands up out of the crowd. Otherwise, you're going to constantly look at each other and go, oh, are you going to do it? And then, the opportunity goes walking by because someone else goes and grabs it.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't want to be that person.
100%. I made a promise to myself at the start of this year that 2022 was the year of saying yes after reading a good book, The Hustle is Dead. Coming from like a big hustle, overworking background, it was time to work smarter and not harder, which I'm still working on.
COVID taught us that.
But it was like opportunities don't create themselves, you create them. You have to say yes to things that scare you. And everything that's come my way, I've said yes to this year. And every little challenge you do, you grow. To me, like, fighting is in my comfort zone. It's very easy for me to just go, I'll just have a few more fights because I know that formula. What
I've
I
done
don't,
it for long enough.
yeah, or I've been surrounded by that environment and people go, oh, you're so brave. But they don't realise that is my comfort zone. Where I've really forced myself to go, like speaking at this event or, taking photos or, doing a podcast, because this is outside my comfort zone. And like back to your Tony Robbins stories, like so many people don't have the courage just to take that first step or be brave enough to do that one thing that really interests them. And I don't want people to get to the end of their life and goes, you know what, I should have taken that $100 bill. I should have said yes to that. I should have joined that gym to join a martial arts to get discipline. Because the moment you create that momentum, it's kind of like never ending. Okay, I can do something a little bit bigger. I can go on a bigger thing. I can do an extra class. I can ask my secret crush out on Tinder or whatever it is. But like with this one life factor, and I know I always talk about it, it's like, why not invest into your mindset? Because your mind is everything.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
the hard drive and what drives us and influences our feelings and the feelings
Yeah.
that we carry into our behaviours. And our behaviours influence our outcomes.
Mm.
And just quickly touch on that, Gary Vee talks about, he said one of the most powerful exercises that I've ever done is going into a nursing home and asking people into 80s and 90s, even people 100 years old, and he says, what's the biggest thing that you regret?
Mm.
And they said, not taking the opportunity when I had it. It's one of the most, or something along the lines of,
Yeah.
it's one of the most painful things because I never got the chance to, I don't even have the opportunity to go back and do it.
Yeah.
And they said to Gary Vee was like, if you have an opportunity, give it your best shot.
Yeah.
Don't get to a point in the life I am now and live with regret because it's too late.
Yeah.
And unless you know what happens after life when you're gone or when you die, there's no, you don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here we are.
It's amazing. So just to kind of pull their self-talk in, when Björn was not sleeping, so I think he was like 6 months old, and he just basically would wake up every hour on the hour for the first 6 months. I'd say probably 12 months. And there was the time for the first time in my life, I really doubted myself, like my entire existence.
As a mother.
Just everything. Like, for the first time, I really lacked confidence in Muay Thai, in business. Like, I had to refine myself. And I'm sure this is really common for a lot of people. But that was the first time in my life I was thinking these types of things. So being the person I am, I was like, I need to talk to someone about this because these thoughts aren't normal. So I did a podcast in COVID with from Brain Training Australia.
Elaine Corcoran.
Yes. And she has an incredible journey herself. And so she's like created this amazing business for brain training. And the way she describes it is if you've always thought the sky's blue, that's the way that your brain will think. But if you challenge it, it's not going to think that way. Anyway, after a few sessions with her, she's super smart and uses all these fancy words. But because I was so sleep deprived, my brain was just, off its head. And that's why for the first time in my life, I had these thoughts. So she basically created an action plan for me, tested, my brain function. And the first thing was, let's get you some sleep. And I kind of laughed at her because, like, you can't force a baby to sleep. Like, that was obviously the goal. So, like, what in your life can you change to get more sleep? Is it going to bed earlier? Is it doing some sleep training with your baby? Like, where can you change? Like, what is in your control to do it? Anyway, so we kind of got that under control and we got in touch with a sleep lady and she pretty much fixed Björn up in 2 weeks. And it was like re-getting my foundations to believe in myself again, to talk about myself in a good way again.
Yeah.
But experiencing that for myself made me such a better coach because I've always been quite a positive person, but now I can relate to people that are just stuck in a different place in their life. Obviously then looking at diet, like my good fats, my exercise, am I training too much? And that's probably like an easy thing for me to do, is not having enough rest for my brain to kind of like fire up and recover. But I think that was a big game changer for us as well, is like your brain is just insane. Yeah.
Yeah, the capabilities are endless. You just have to tap in and trigger the right points that are going to give you the best steps forward and move you in the right direction. And I guess when we zoom out from the example you just used, you obviously had a big problem. You seeked help. You found an action plan and defined it. You did the action steps required to the point where you realised, you could achieve an outcome when perhaps maybe you thought all was lost, especially when your, baby's not sleeping and you're going a bit crazy.
Awesome. Did you have any other points that you wanted to add?
No, I think the biggest thing that a lot of people really underestimate is mindset, and a lot of people say it's deep, and we live in a world today where it's all about instant gratification, very shallow. The thing is, and the one thing I've learned through learning about my mindset and how to get the best for myself and give myself the best chance of success is you have to do it. Because without it, there's just actions and there's no actions that have any meaning behind them. And when there's no action behind the meaning towards achieving something, the chance of you achieving that and it being important and significant to you and actually ever achieving it is impossible. So if you're one of those people that, you know, you want to know more about your mindset, or maybe you have more questions for us, I love chatting about mindset. I talk about it forever, and it's been a massive attributive of my success, and I believe it's contributed to a lot of other people's success who I've coached and the people I work with, and, you know, a lot of our clients as well. I love it, and I'd love to be able to share it with as many people as I can. What about you?
I love it. I love seeing people do well. I love seeing, like, for example, we had the testing week a week ago. You know, 3 girls cried, and then I'm crying because they've overcome something.
Broken through the glass ceiling.
Yeah, that's everything to me, and that's why I kind of pitch up every day, wake up, do the long hours, because if I didn't give them that platform to break through that ceiling, like, they would have never experienced that feeling. And I think, you know, this is such a special place.
And it's euphoric, that feeling of breaking through a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Doing something you never thought you could do, or exceeding a limitation you placed upon yourself, or something that you were told by someone else.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Inside CG. Thank you for Whitney joining us today to talk about the mindset. Definitely been a game changer for both Whitney and I, working together on improving our own. And, you know, like, we've worked really hard to forge a better version of ourselves and drive forward in our lives to create a better future for ourselves and our future family, but also all the people involved, whether it's our staff and our members. If you have any questions about mindset that you'd like to ask, feel free to comment or message us below. You can find Whitney, where, Whitney, on Instagram? Where can people follow you?
IG baby.
Yeah, what's your username?
Just at Whitney Tuner.
Yeah, and you can find me at Pamorn, all one word. And you can follow at Champions Gym. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got a lot out of this podcast. Until next time.